Welcome to another episode of The Silent Saints. In the last episode, we discussed a very interesting topic where people have said, I'm a good person. Why do I need to go to church? And what we realized is that we all need the good Lord Jesus. And the church provides us Jesus. And Jesus can help us reach something very beautiful in our personal life, to become a better version of ourselves. Well, today we're going to enter into a different topic. It's very similar in the sense that we want to reach the best version of ourselves. So today we're going to answer the question, how can I reach greatness? Today we have with us Rita, Fadi, Rasha, Bridget, and Pilar. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the topic we're talking about, how can I reach greatness? Ooh, greatness. It's a strange word to use. Not many people use it. Maybe it was used in Roman times, greatness. But we also see some people who say, I'm great. There are songs written on how I'm great, I'm this, I'm that. So the question is, how can I reach greatness? Now, before the episode, you had the opportunity to ask some people of what they think the word greatness mean. What did you get?
I talked to my wife about it and just asked her kind of, hey babe, at dinner, what do you think greatness means? After she looked at me like, why are you asking me that? She said it's the best. Being great is being the best. So whatever it is that you're doing, being the best.
Being the best. That's fair. That's good. That's what she married you.
Yeah. You said it, not me.
We said not to lie.
Yeah, we fib.
I got very similar answers to that. Is the best. No one can surpass the greatest. Mm-hmm. So kind of the peak of everything is what I got over and over.
The highest point.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Rasha, did you get something similar?
I got something very similar to that too, just being the best at the highest level, whether at work or school-wise, just being the best you can be.
Yeah, I agree with them all. I mean, when you look at history, a lot of people wanted to be number one, like Alexander the Great. He wanted to conquer everything, and that's why they gave him the name Alexander the Great, because, he wanted to be looked at as, numero uno, and no one is going to be able to do what he's done ever. He wanted to be remembered. So his idea was to pretty much be the best. And at that time it was, taking over lands and conquering things. Today it's, becoming the best you can be, whether it's work-wise or in your community. You want to feel like, people look up to you.
Pharaohs used to consider themselves divine. They used to be small letter G, gods in a way. So, Rita, what'd you get?
So I spoke to a couple people that talked about achieving greatness is to be the best, but also I thought it was interesting, but to be remembered for something, to be looked up to for something, to be, I think it's obviously death is a big fear for a lot of people, and a few people, that was kind of where their answer was going. To achieve greatness will be to have been remembered, even after I die. And I thought about it, and I thought, it makes sense.
It's a good point.
It's a good point.
It's a good point.
So.
To reach greatness, to be so great that you would even be remembered after that. Okay, so I want to shift your mind a little bit. So that's greatness. We're looking at the word greatness. Let's kind of shift into success. Many people have told me greatness to when I say, how do you reach greatness? They would say, they bring up success. What do you think, what do people tell you, what is success to people?
So I work in corporate America.
Yeah.
And greatness in the business that I work in is who makes the most money, sells the biggest building, closes the biggest transactions. And when you are at that level, you are not only revered, but you are rewarded. So everybody wants to achieve that level of greatness. Everybody wants to be that number one guy in the office. And to them, he's a small g god, and it's and it comes down to money. He's making the most money, has the biggest house, drives the nicest car, and it's a big deal, especially amongst the younger guys in the office.
The level, that's almost the goal.
It's the goal.
It becomes the bar. Well, the bar would be if I can go a little higher.
Higher than him. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, money. Who can make the most money, I think, is such a, in this culture, I mean, I think in all periods of history, you know, the more money you have, the greater you appear to be.
Sure.
No matter what kind of person you are inside,
Sure.
you know.
Irrelevant
So,
to that.
yeah.
So what's really interesting about that is I recently, coincidentally, was reading an article on success and the things that people consider what makes someone successful. And I really thought that it would be money, and that's exactly how the article started. Was a lot of people parallel success with money. How much money you have determines how successful you are. So how much stuff you are, or excuse me, how much stuff you have determines how successful you are. All of those seem to be, at least in society, what dictates success. So very much so what you're saying. But it went through, and as the article continued, it said, no. We surveyed a group of people, some of these very successful, you know, by definition, very monetarily successful people. And it said those same people who seem to have it all said that their happiness is what determines their success. And there were a couple of other things. So time spent with loved ones. So time became a measure of success. How you're using that time became a measure of success. And I thought it was really interesting because that's not what mainstream society is teaching us. And the fact that this was a mainstream article that, you know, popped up on my news feed that I ended up reading was really interesting, because who knows, hopefully other people read that and said, okay, maybe I don't need to make that $1 million this year and reach this bar, but maybe the bar needs to be shattered and we need to kind of think about other things to determine our successes.
But it was the people that made the most money that thought that. So until you reach that level of greatness or success, it's gonna, and how many people, let's think about it, 1% of the population is considered wealthy. So if you're never going to get to that point, then that's always the point you're striving for, and you'll never know that that's not what makes you happy. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but at the same, I mean, actually, I know you're saying the 1%. You brought up something interesting on that 1%, because I've been hearing this 1% so often these days. We are, if we consider the kings of the old, okay, we are living better than 99, if not all, the kings of the old. I mean, we have cell phones. We have people that work at these companies that will run around to do things for us that they couldn't do. I can send an email or a letter, you know, where somebody can say, hear ye, here's an announcement. You know, we're having another child. I'm not announcing we're having another child.
I hope that you don't address the people in your emails with hear ye.
No, but yeah, I don't. I assure you I don't. It's usually dear, you know, but I mean, somebody worked really hard before it would have to have, you know, 3 or 4 people. They go on camels or donkeys or whatever, you know, to deliver these letters. Now it's like within a second, somebody worked really hard to get. So we're actually living way better. I mean, I think we've reached a huge level of success if we were to compare ourselves to the kings and queens of the old.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I've read something once that said if you have a roof over your head, 1 meal a day, and a car, you're considered the top 5% richest people in the world. But at the same time, I go hand in hand with what they're saying, because my level of success as I was growing up, you know, I wasn't born in this country. We moved here, we lived in poverty, you know, for a few years. We saved money. We got to a point where you moved to a better home. And, you know, it's kind of like you were always taught, you know, you work hard to get to where you want to be. And then when I got there, I said, oh, you know, times are changing. The way the society is now, everything's changing. Things are becoming more expensive. I need to make this much money to be able to do this for my family, you know? And, you know, when your parents are immigrants, as you are, you know, they don't have a 401k. Yeah. So now you're working even extra hard because you want to make sure they're taken care of. Yeah. So my level of success was, you know, I need to get to a point where I make sure that I can take care of my family and my parents at the same time. But also that had to do with money, because the more money you made, you know, in a sense, the more happier you thought you would be. Yeah. But you're right, because once you get to that point, you realize what's really important. you know? Like when I had a kid, I told my partners, hey, you know, I'm not going to be working as hard because everyone that I talked to that's a lot older than me said, you know, you can always go back to work. You'll never get the time that you've lost with your loved ones.
Very true. You know, somebody once told me reaching success and that top level where you know you've reached the money is like going to the moon. This person never went to the moon, but I guess in meditation maybe they did. But it's like going to the moon. You try so hard to make it to the moon, and you get to the moon and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
You're all alone, you know. It's like, so you can't share that success with anybody. You're just all on your own. So in reality, it's not always, I can go to the moon and then what? Okay, now what are you going to do on the moon? There's nothing.
Well, I think the best example of that, is like some of these celebrities. I mean, I know
Sure.
these kids look up to these celebrities like they're, you know, the be-all, end-all, and if they could get to where they were, then they would be happy. Mm-hmm. I recently went to a concert of a young boy that, Justin Bieber concert, and I took my goddaughter, and they are obsessed with him, and they think that if they lived his life, they would be so happy. Mm-hmm. And at one point in the concert, he starts singing a song about how this isn't everything, and about how he's not an animal, and that money never made him happy. And I'm looking at this kid, and I felt so bad for him. I mean, here's a kid that has everything, hundreds of millions of dollars, and all he wants is someone to really care about him.
Right.
Like the whole song is about how no one really treats him, you know, like he's a human. They love him because of his money, and it was so like eye-opening that, you know, and of course the girls don't hear that, they're just singing along,
Right.
you know, and I'm like, but listen to what he's saying, you still want to be this way, but I think in this society that, you know, if you have money and you have fame and everybody wants your autograph, then that's what's going to make you happy.
Success, therefore that's
But
greatness.
your greatness, yeah.
So let me ask you guys this question. Why do people, it's kind of along the path of this, why do people want to make a name for themselves? Why is it so important that people want to make a name for themselves? Pilar, what do you think?
I think one of the biggest things is people want to be remembered, right? I mean, you're only on this planet for 70, 80, 90 years if you're lucky, right? And I think there's a big part of just human nature of looking around and saying, when I'm gone, is that it? Is that the only, you know, footprint? Is that the only mark I'll leave on this earth? And so I got a buddy who talks about, for him, he won't make it until he sees his name on the side of a building because he knows that building will be there after he's gone, kind of thing. That's his definition of success. So I think that has a lot to do with it. People just feeling maybe a little insecure about, do people need me? And I can prove that they will because they'll remember me when I'm gone.
I agree with that. I think that most people will want to be remembered after they've lived. That would be like the ultimate type of success. And so if you can build that much of a stakehold, you're going to build that kind of a name, and you'll get your name on the side of a building or attached to a corporation that everyone knows, and people will remember you. The question is, how will they remember you? That's what I always think about, is really, I don't know.
I think it makes people feel good about themselves, though. Like, oh, I did something good. I want people, I mean, I guess some people want people to know them by what they did or how they did it. And they want to make a name for themselves. It makes them feel good, and it makes them feel like they did something.
An accomplishment.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no. You know, even without, you know, passing away and seeing their name on buildings and whatnot, which, you know, a lot of that has to do with it. It's, they want to feel like when they walk in the room that people are talking about them. You know, they're the ones that people need to look up to. They want to be that example that people want to be, because in their minds, you know, they want to be so successful to the point of what makes them happy that they feel like that's what they looked up to, so they want other people to look up to the same example, but now they want to be part of that example, that Justin Bieber, you know. All of our little cousins, you know, the girls, they go crazy for Justin Bieber because he's an idol. You know, they want to be idolized. They want to be remembered. They want to be looked up to. They want to feel good about themselves, and they think that's what's going to bring them happiness. And a lot of times, you know, they feel satisfied with themselves when they get to that point. Some people don't realize it until they get to that point that they're actually still not satisfied.
I forgot which, you're right, I forgot which actor or actress that said, I wish I could just be left alone at a restaurant. I just want to be unknown. I want to go to a restaurant. I want to eat, order my food without everybody crowding me, without everybody, I'm just a regular human being,
Yeah, but then that comes with the territory. It's like a different thing, Everything comes with that territory. Sometimes I wish people would come ask for my autograph.
It sucks, man. Every time I go out to eat, guys.
I don't know, when I was buying a house, I'm sure there was 50 or 500 pages of autographs that I did, so.
I think it's human nature too. I think to be exalted or to be loved or to be, nobody can say that it doesn't feel good.
It's nice.
It's so nice.
It's nice. Let's be honest with ourselves. It's nice.
Right.
To be loved and remembered, to have, maybe accomplished something that somebody else didn't. I mean, it's human nature to want it. And I mean, what do we teach our kids? Like, I was a teacher for a while, and what do you teach them? Like, get the best grades, go to college, become this lawyer, doctor, invent the cure for cancer, where it's constantly, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's what else is attached to that, what other morals and values come with that.
You touched on that human nature piece of it. I think there's something really deep kind of in that goes way back to that human nature and just survival of the fittest. And there's always a sense of the strongest will survive kind of thing. So that breeds competitiveness, and that's why I think you want to be admired and exalted and feel. That confidence feels good. Everybody likes that feeling of confidence. And then you get that when somebody walks up and says, you're the man.
Right.
And so that's what people are chasing all the time, every day.
Immortality. I think at the end of the day, it kind of goes back to, I wish I was immortal, in a sense, or at least I know I can't be. We all know we're going to die. We don't like to think so, or we seem to just put that on the side. It's on a back burner. We all know it. We just kind of don't want to think that way. So the next best thing, knowing that subconsciously or consciously, we just want to leave a name for ourselves. We want to be somehow immortal. And if there is a way, maybe there is a way to follow it. So this would be the question. Let's take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at what would be the way to reach immortality, and what does Scripture tell us about reaching greatness. Stay with us. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about why is it important for people to have a name for themselves. In a way, how can they reach greatness through leaving a name for themselves? Now we're going to look at something a little, maybe along the same path, of people who have left a name for themselves. Who do you know that you would consider that they reached greatness? And what does it mean for them, and what does it mean for you to remember them that way?
I think there are people that have achieved greatness in different ways. People that have achieved, greatness in helping others, like Mother Teresa. But then you have people that have achieved greatness in very evil ways, like Hitler.
Yeah.
Who doesn't know who Hitler is?
Right.
And he achieved greatness in doing some of the most horrible things in history, And then you have Pope John Paul II, who changed the world with his papacy. You know what I mean? So I think, and with his love for Christ. So I think greatness can be achieved in good and bad ways. And then there's people in our own families. To me, my father's achieved greatness for raising 4 good kids and making a name for himself at the universities he taught at. And so I think greatness is in how you view it. And there are certainly different levels, and there is good and bad greatness.
A lot of times, you're right, a lot of people consider maybe the sports names, or the one who...
Michael Jordan.
Everybody knows Michael Jordan, right? But at the end of the day, when we pray that, Michael Jordan makes it and everybody else, when Michael Jordan goes to heaven, Jesus and I be like, oh my gosh, it's Michael Jordan, come on in. At the end of the day, you know what I mean? He's and I'm sure he will say it, he's just like the rest of us. He has very excellent skill in basketball.
Yeah, but Jesus is going to be like, what do you think? One-on-one with me? I agree with this, let's go.
Yeah, that's a good point. That would be a fun game to watch. That's good.
You'd have the headband Jesus because of his hair.
Yeah, so other people, I mean, who's going to remember who and why? I think to your point, there's a negative and there's a positive.
I think another person is like Steve Jobs, just because of his influence in the technological world and kind of how simple he was, even with all of the wealth that he had. He gave back so much of it,
I think one of the interesting things, you mentioned Steve Jobs, and you talked a little bit about who and why. That made me think that there's a sense of perception, perspective. Who is the one actually viewing this person as great? I'm sure there were people in Hitler's kind of cabinet that saw him as great and exalted him, but in good ways. Steve Jobs, everything he did on the technology world, but there was talk about his own family and some of the things in his personal life that were torn. So maybe people in his family don't see him as great. And so that adds a little wrinkle to it in terms of how you're viewed as being great, by who and why. It's a good point.
So I guess we see that, people definitely have a motivation to reach greatness, and one of it is to leave a name for themselves. And I think that's something huge for a lot of people. I want to ask you guys, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what motivates you towards success and toward greatness? What do you think? What does it for you?
I think it goes back to maybe how you define success. I mean, I've got goals. And I think almost everybody has goals, places you're trying to get in life, things you're trying to achieve. And so reaching those goals is what motivates me. At the end of the day, if my ideals and values are kind of in place in the right spots, those goals should be centered around my happiness, true happiness with my family and being able to spend time and enjoy them, happiness and being secure financially, but also just as a person with people who love me. And I think that's my motivation, is really striving to reach those goals, and constantly checking myself to make sure those goals are centered around happiness and not some sort of worldly place I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it brings up a good example. It's kind of like you have goals to be successful, financially, because you want to be able to take care of the people around you. Everyone does. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, because you have goals that you want to reach where you don't have to think about what you need to do to take care of your family. You just want to be able to do it and not have it stress you out because, like I said earlier, my dad was an immigrant. He came here, he had to kill himself working hard as he can. You never see them because he went to get to a point where, he can take care of us. Right. But, I had a sibling who passed away where, knowing that what I know after she passed away, it's like you'd give up everything to have them back. So really, the money didn't make us happy because we would have done anything to go back to the poverty and have her around, right, than be successful and not have her around. Not saying that's what caused it.
Right,
it's just, where you are in different parts of your life to get to where you are. Like you get to a certain area of your life where you're like, man, I would have really been happy if they were here to see this. Right. So that's when you see what's really important in your life. Right. The whole family thing that he brought up, because now that I have a son, it's like, I find excuses not to go to work sometimes in my own mind. And I'm like, all right, I got to get up. It is what it is, but it's the measure of success is pretty much based off of what's going on in your life. Yeah. What's most important to you, your goals, and things that maybe have happened to you where sometimes it's just as simple as, getting up in the morning, having a good day, coming home, making sure everyone's happy, and that's it. It doesn't have to be, making $1 million.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I think for me, wanting to reach greatness as a dentist, I want to be the best I can be with what skills I have, but helping people. And I think once I do that, let's be honest, nobody wants to come to the dentist. Most people don't, not nobody. But I want to be able to help people and make them happy. And I think that what motivates me to want to be great at what I do and want to learn more and be better and better and better. Not because someone is going to know my name, oh, she's this, that, but just helping people and making other people happy makes me want to be better and better and better.
Well, you do a good job and make it very easy on me. So I used to be that guy that didn't want to go to the dentist, so thank you.
I'm still that girl, but it's hard. But,
That's fair.
Yeah.
It's a fair point.
I mean, just hearing some of these things that you guys are striving for kind of changes my perspective a little bit. Because I didn't think I wanted greatness. I didn't think I don't want the spotlight. I don't need it. It's not what I correlate as happiness for me, and that's really what I'm striving toward. But I think that there are a lot of things in my life, like I do want to be the greatest version of myself. I do want to be a great daughter of Christ, and I do want to be like a great teacher to my students in whatever capacity I'm needed. And I don't think I correlated that enough before. And so I think that greatness can be a lot more than just people remembering your name, but rather remembering the things that you've done for them on a very personal and individual level.
I think you can be great to that point without anybody ever having to notice, right? You said something that was really, really cool. I thought being the best version, the greatest version of yourself. You could be that greatest version of yourself and never get a single compliment for it, right? I think greatness doesn't necessarily have to correlate with a bunch of people saying you're awesome.
What others think of you.
Yeah.
Rita, you want to add anything?
Like I said, I work in an industry, and I particularly work for a group who, they don't need the money anymore. You know what I mean? They just want to be the greatest so that everybody could say that they are the greatest. And the older I get, I have more of the attitude that Bridget does. Like, I see that it doesn't make them happy necessarily to get to that point. They're sacrificing like time with their family and all of these things just to be number one. And for me, I've even said it in the past, so many years of my life, like, I don't want that. I don't want my name to be in lights just for it to be there and then sacrifice other parts of my life. Not that you have to, but it's just what I'm around. So I think, exactly what Bridget said. I mean, I really do, for me, achieving greatness would be, hopefully one day raising a family, and having them think that I'm this great, wife, mother, like, God willing, or achieving greatness in with these high school girls, that we like to mentor. You know what I mean? That they could see our simple lives as being like, well, wow, they didn't get into too much trouble, so they're great, So I think my definition of greatness has greatly. I had so many goals in college, and I still have goals, and I still want to get to a certain point. I still want to, make money and be successful, but I've just realized that isn't what makes me happy. And even when we talk about celebrities, like, you hear about all these celebrities that take their own lives, and you think, God, they have everything, or everything everybody else thinks they would want, that would make them happy, and then they kill themselves, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, what was missing? But really, there's so much more to life than just being the greatest at something.
If we look at our moms and our grandmas, their greatness or accomplishment
Making
in life
dolma
is to feed people, right? To feed us. I go to my grandma's house, and she's got a table for 15 people, and I'm like, now it's just me, just me, my wife, and the kids. But who is the other table for? I get a table for me, but who's the other one for? Doesn't make sense. So, but that's their goal in life. Well, we're talking about greatness, and this is very good. So let's look at scripture. Rita, you're going to read for us.
Sure.
From Isaiah. If you can let us know where you're reading from, so we can see what
Sure.
the ultimate level of greatness. Where are you reading from?
Okay, so this is Isaiah 52, verses 13, 14, and 15.
Okay.
See, my servant shall prosper. He shall be raised high and greatly exalted. Even as many were amazed at him, so marred were his features, beyond that of mortals, his appearance, beyond that of human beings. So shall he startle many nations. Kings shall stand speechless, for those who have not been told shall see. Those who have not heard shall ponder it.
Thank you. Okay, if you don't mind, so the first, going back to the first few words, what was the phrase?
See, my servant shall prosper.
Okay, so we're talking about a prospering servant, and I wanted to use the same word, the prospering servant. And then the next line.
He shall be raised high and greatly exalted.
Raised high and greatly exalted. So we're talking about a prosperous, someone who's prosperous, someone who's greatly exalted. And God is using these words describing somebody. So you know, if God is using these words, and later on says kings would even look at him, that's something special. It doesn't get any higher than this. But the next verse, I think, is the key to greatness, something that's boggled the minds of many. When you do the research on this and you look at the writings of the Jewish writings on it, this was very tough to describe or very tough to understand, because the word would say,
even as many were amazed at him, so marred were his features.
So marred were his features. He was disfigured. How can someone, so here's God talking about a prosperous servant, someone that everybody's going to be looking at, including kings, and he's at the highest point of greatness, yet he's marred, he's disfigured, he's not looking right. Now, the reason the Jewish fathers didn't understand this, or maybe didn't have, or had some kind of explanation, but it wasn't maybe to the fullest, is because it really was fulfilled with Jesus. And this is where Jesus comes and shows us what it means, what greatness means. And we know that he was raised to a point, and he was raised on the cross, on a tree, and he was disfigured. And everybody that walked by didn't understand. But this these words became fulfilled with Jesus on the cross. So what God is telling us, the highest point of greatness is exemplified through Jesus on the cross. And we know what Jesus did. He gave his life for us. He gave everything for us, including his life. So I think there is a distinction between the world's definition of greatness and there is the godly definition of greatness. And that's something very important for us to see, that from God's eyes, greatness is to sacrifice, is to give everything we have for others. So really, based on this definition, how do you think someone can achieve greatness? I mean, if we were to just erase everything we talked about from a world point of view and focusing on it with this new definition of how God asks us to, what would be the way to achieve greatness? What do you think?
To serve. I mean, it's the first words out of Rita's mouth when she read it was to be a servant, to serve others.
Well, what does it mean to serve? What does it mean to be a servant? I mean, now we're going to jump into a whole description of a servant. What do you guys think? You're right. It's to serve. That's what Jesus did. I came to serve, not to be served. What does that mean to serve?
I think it means putting yourself last. When you're interacting with somebody, when you see someone's in need, even if they're not being overtly obvious about it, but it's looking for those things that you can help somebody with, and no matter what it means for your own well-being, doing those things first.
I agree with that definition completely. I think it's very much so someone being willing, at least, to extend themselves in a way that benefits someone else.
Yeah, the whole servant part, like, I guess examples we can use is our fathers, you know. They give up everything for them to make sure that their kids are taken care of, their wife is taken care of. You know, they put themselves last. So us as ourselves, you know, we have so much power to help so many people, and we could put ourselves last, but a lot of times we choose ourselves first. So to be great, you have to be able to give up things that you want or sacrifice things that, you know, at a certain time to help others in need over yourself. So putting yourself last is a perfect example, because if I can, you know, help the guy next door, well, I can't do this for myself. You know, that's a part of being great, because you get that sense of, happiness inside when you do something as simple as opening the door for the old lady walking into the store, you know? You could just see how happy that makes them, let alone knowing that you have the power to actually change someone's life by donating, by, you know, going over there, helping them with whatever it is that they might need, because they might not be physically able to do it. You know, my dad is handicapped, and the neighbors across the street, and they say anytime your dad needs anything, have him call us. You know, a couple of times he's fallen, and they've called, and they came over there. And in my eyes, those people are great, you know. They stop doing what they're doing. They have a family. They have kids. They come running over, you know, just to make sure that he's okay. So I think it's putting yourself last.
I think that word servant, you're right. And I think that word servant, I want to look at it from a different angle. But let's do this. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to look at a way that Jesus tells us to be a servant and what it means to be a servant. And how can someone who's leading in this world, whether at home, whether at a company, or whether at a country, how can someone be a servant? Stay with us. Welcome back. We are talking about how to reach greatness. And before the break, we reached this very strange phrase of a servant. And we kind of started talking about it, but let's look more in depth of what it means to be a servant. Well, let's start with this. Why don't we hear what Jesus tells us on really how to lead? And then we'll get back into the servant, because we're going to see some very interesting words from Jesus happening. Rita, what are you reading for us?
So this is Matthew chapter 20, verses 25 to 28.
Okay.
But Jesus summoned them and said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and the great ones make their authority over them felt. But it shall not be so among you. Rather, whoever wishes to be great among you shall be your servant. Whoever wishes to be first among you shall be your slave. Just so the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Amen.
Okay, this is huge. Okay, and I know when we compare this with the Old Testament reading that we just read before the break, we're seeing that the servant and glory, servant and greatness go hand in hand. Prophesied then, told to us by Jesus. I gotta ask you this question: how does the world view this word servant? I mean, if Jesus was to go around today, in today's society, and say, you need to be a servant. Fadi, you need to be a servant. Pilar, you need to be a servant. Bridget, you as you're watching, you need to be a servant. How would you take it? How would the world take it if Jesus was to say, you need to be a servant?
I think that servant in today's society is really the person who is doing the grunge work, the work that no one else wants to do, the work that is very undesirable, where your hands are really getting dirty, cleaning the toilets kind of work.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely viewed as a negative. The word servant in today's society as a whole, I think, is definitely viewed as a negative. You want a servant to serve you. You don't want to be the servant. Like if you're watching a movie, the servant is always the poor guy, the guy that is doing this because he can't speak English or because there's nothing else that he can be doing. And it's viewed as, I think, more of a negative thing than anything.
Can you imagine if Jesus was running a company and he would get up in front of everybody and he's speaking to all of his employees and says these words? I mean, could he even run a company like that? I mean, by saying, you need to serve everybody. Everybody in here serves everybody. That's just how we run things around here.
When they're getting paid for it, they do it.
You get rid of a lot of middle management that way.
The HR department would go out the window.
Considered middle managers.
There'd be no HR.
I mean, would the world consider him as someone successful? Could you go to a president of a company or a CEO and say, you need to be the servant of your employees.
No way.
Yeah, there's such a focus in the corporate America anyway, and I mean, there's seminars, and you can go away for weekends, learn how to be a leader, and it's the opposite, right? Be a leader. Try, it's all about being the man, being powerful, being able to lead people, getting people to do things for you, even if it's with all in good intentions and moving the company in the right direction. But it's getting people to do other things.
Yeah, it's like asking a chief to become an Indian again. He's gonna be like, no, I own my tribe.
I worked so hard to be the leader. Now you want me to go back down
Yeah.
to be where I started, maybe? But people work their way up. They don't want to work their way down.
You know what's amazing is I went to a couple of the leadership seminars, and one of the best things that I've seen recently is this little change where they're saying you need to take care of your employees. There's something called EVP, Employee Value Proposition, and it's really where upper management looks at the direct reports to maybe not necessarily serve them as a servant, but to take care of them. And it's kind of very interesting that there's this shift that is happening. But I don't think it's anywhere near to say to a CEO and a president, you need to serve your employees. Although in reality, without the employees, there is no CEO, there is no president, there's no product to be delivered to the consumer. So I think it kind of changes things. But how easy is it? Let's forget a company. Is it easy for us in our families? I mean, someone's watching, and here we are, we're talking about servants and being a servant. Can I be a servant to my family the way that Jesus, he washes his disciples' feet. I don't know how many of us in our own families would be willing to do that among, let's say, the not so favorable people in our families. So how can we serve our families?
I think about how my mom is constantly the one who is serving us. She is making the meals for us. She's cleaning up after us. She's making sure that whatever it is that's going on in our lives is being taken care of. And then how my siblings and I very recently thought about how much she really does for all of us. And we wanted to at least try to serve her in some capacity. And so we decided that we would host her. And we made dinner for her. Granted, it was barbecue because that's, what we do best. But we barbecued.
You can't make dolma?
I'm getting there, but I need my mom to help me make the dolma. So it's like, I can't be like, hey, can you help me help you? So that doesn't really work for us. So that's what we did. And we didn't let her clean up, and we made her kind of just sit and relax. And we kind of tried to be there for her and have conversations with her. She ended up kind of taking the kids and playing with them and stuff like that. But we put forth the effort, and she really appreciated it.
That's a good point. Especially for moms. So who normally serve us, something beautiful to give back. Very nice.
Yeah, I've seen that with my wife, like after being married for a little over a year now, like on how much a woman actually does, As much as I appreciated my mom because she had 8 of us, but 7 of them were girls, so I don't have to do much in the house,
Wow, you had nothing to do in the house.
Nothing.
He was served all day.
Yeah, it was nice, Hey, go home with my bed. We don't have good heat in this house. I'll be there soon to sleep.
Did you have people walking around with like hors d'oeuvres, trays?
Grapes.
Grapes, feeding you with a...
But now that I've been seeing, like over the past year, taking care of me, taking care of my son, and like the things that she does for us, getting up in the middle of the night, even though I knew she had to work in the morning, then I started kind of like helping her out more. And just the smallest thing she appreciated. If she came home and I washed the dishes, it's not that hard, Mm-hmm. But before, you're just used to leaving it on the table. Mom took it, Growing up in a way where it's like, in a home, I should say, that I don't have to do these things. So over time, you realize that the little things that you can do for your family brings the biggest appreciation, because it's kind of like your way of telling them I love you, mm-hmm. but not actually having to say it because they know you're thinking of them.
Yeah, I would totally agree with everything Fadi said. I think something I struggle with every single day as a husband and a father is how can I do more for my family? And I feel like the biggest thing that I'm a failure in is just spending enough time with them. And it's those small things. It's not having to do big things like take them on a vacation or buy my wife a car or anything giant. It's just do the dishes for my wife so she doesn't have to, rotate the laundry for one less thing she doesn't have to think about, playing with the kids for an extra 20 minutes before bed, or praying with them, or reading a story before bed. Those are the things that they'll remember, and that's a big struggle of mine, is to try and find enough time and to motivate myself to do those things more.
Right.
So for me, I have a grandmother that really can't do much for herself anymore. And, I'll offer to take her groceries, but mostly it's, serving her is just sitting with her. You know what I mean? Like, she has 35 grandchildren, but everybody's so busy with their lives that, like, if I go there that week, I'm the only one that's been there. And so, she doesn't care about the groceries, she doesn't care, she just wants somebody to sit with her. And that is the biggest form of service for her, just to come and sit with me and care that I'm still alive. And it's actually very sad, but I mean, like you said, it's these little things, it's not necessarily you need to give your kids the world, or I need to sit and wash my grandma's feet, although I'm sure she'd love that. Mm-hmm. It's just sitting with her, like taking time, and time is a huge thing, taking time to just go and do these things that maybe even you don't want to really do, or you think you have other things that are more important.
Same thing as they all said, I used to go visit my grandparents. I used to make it a point, go visit them, go to church, come over, have breakfast with them, just simple as breakfast, and just visiting them and being with them. And even now that I'm married, I make it a point to go to my mom's, because she's always coming to us, seeing the kids. And I say, well, you know what, let me come help you. She loves to throw parties. So I like to say, hey, Craig, stay with the kids. I'm going to go help her set up, even though she probably doesn't need it, but just to give her a break, because she thinks she's Wonder, woman. And she is. She really is. I don't know how she does it. So I just like to go there and just give time and spend time with her and set up and help her clean up, because nobody's there anymore, so she has to do it all on her own. So just to help her with the little things. Or even my husband now, he gets so overwhelmed coming home, he's so busy, and I'm like, let me help you pay the bills. And he's like, no, I gotta do it. I'm like, just go relax, go sit down, let me do it, just pay online.
Put your feet in the
Yeah.
salt water,
Let me
bring
rub
you the newspaper.
it.
Wow,
That's a little
nice. I think we're saying something very special. The message of Jesus is making it clearer and clearer from where we started when we started with this episode, and greatness and success, and how it's maybe money and it's a high place and things like that. But now I think the more we break it down, serving others bring joy to them and us. And I think this is the key factor that really we can take, whether it's from scripture or whether from the daily experiences or from Mother Teresa, who the only thing she did was serve every day, every minute of her life, serving God, serving others, serving God through others. So I think there's something about it here that the best way to reach greatness is really to serve. I mean, that seems to be a common thing, but not in the negative, you are a slave and you're my slave, but rather is to offer our gifts and offer our capabilities to our families and even at work. Essentially, everything we do ends up going to the consumer or to someone. Well, whatever we're doing that goes to someone, our families could be that someone. So I guess in a sense, even in companies and even in things like that, it does end up being serving others. And I think that's the key message that the Lord gives us and that we're seeing in our daily lives. Consider that, as you're watching this, what would bring you happiness? What would bring you greatness? So maybe one thing we can leave the viewers with, if you were to give them advice on reaching greatness, maybe if they are a teen at home, or if they are an older person, if they are a mom, if they are a dad, what advice would you give them on reaching that greatness through serving? What would you tell them?
I think it really starts with stepping back and taking a second to think about what does it mean for you to be great? What do you want to be great in your life. For me, it's being a great father, it's being a great husband. And I've set goals for myself in terms of what does that mean. And so if you know what being great means to you, then you can set those goals and just spend the rest of your life trying to achieve those.
Yeah. I would say in order to achieve greatness, you need to have an awareness of how you serve others so that you can serve to the best of your capacity, and then by serving others, you will achieve greatness.
I kind of agree with Pilar. I think with my experience, reaching greatness, you have to set goals, see what you want to do, where you see your life going, and just try to achieve that. And go work at it and be harder and harder until you get to where you want to be. And I think that is achieving greatness.
I would say reaching greatness is a lot of what they're saying, yes. But you have to also invite Jesus in to help you accomplish those goals and those desires that you have to reach even a higher greatness than what you have in your own mind. So what it comes down to is you have to find out what's important to you, yes. You want to be, strong-willed, and you want to have these goals because otherwise you won't know what you're aiming for. Working hard every single day, asking for people's help is a big part of actually reaching a higher greatness than what you think you can accomplish by yourself. So a lot of times it came down to my family and wanting to be a great dad, wanting to be a great husband. And I work at it every day because I've never been a dad before. I've never been a husband over the past years when I'm starting to learn all these new things. So I'm working hard to get to the point where I see other great dads and other great role models in my life where I want to be as great as they are. So a lot of that has to do with what you want and what's important to you. It's not always about work. It's not always about things like that, because at my point in my life right now, I want to be a great role model for my kid and to be a good husband to my wife.
I think achieving greatness can be found first and foremost in serving God. I think once you've set your mind on serving God, on serving Jesus, you can really figure out what is most important in life, and that is to be a servant to others. The way Jesus was a servant to others here on earth. He gave his life for us. I recently watched Cinderella, the movie, and the mother constantly said, have courage and be kind. And I think if we could take that into our lives and really serve people and have courage and be kind to others, I think we will find greatness not even looking for it. So, keep your faith in Jesus, have courage and be kind, and greatness will be yours whether you want it or not.
Thank you. And on to that note, something very beautiful, especially when thinking of leaving a name for ourselves. If we're talking about immortality, Jesus makes it clear for us in John 6, unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life within you. And so he also says, whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood will have life and eternal life. So there's immortality for us. Is very clear, and the Lord makes it for us very simple. He tells us to serve, and that is almost the code that he created us with, that him knowing where our greatness can be achieved, and that is in serving others and in serving him. And in a way, in serving him, it's not because he's a demanding God in a sense that he says, as a bad master, is the greatest master to serve. So looking at him this way and looking at others and the love of others that we can bring, especially into our families, into our homes, into our work life, we can certainly achieve greatness. And speaking of service, so as we're talking about reaching greatness and serving others by reaching greatness, is the next step would be, how can we serve others based off of the gifts we have, especially the spiritual gifts? So this is where we're going next. The next time we get together, we're going to look at, do we have any spiritual gifts that we can bring into this world, that we can change this world in the most positive way? We will see you next time, and Pushu Bishlama, and Allah Mokhan.